once the transmission pan has been off and it's drained, you remove the old fluid and you can put it in a container to be disposed of. You can see underneath here, here's a filter, here's a filter, here's the valve body. You're going to need a ratchet with an 8mm socket. There's going to be 6 bolts. Basically, you just look at the bolts that are black and that aren't Torx, like this one, this one, this one here. You'll see as I go along. So what I have found out, I've got the first 4 out, and I'm gonna, this needs a Torx 25 on this filter, because underneath the filter it will give me access to the last 2 bolts that I need to get to. Got to be careful, this will still have a little bit of excess transmission fluid in it. That's what we're replacing today, is the valve body and the shifting solenoid. This is for those P0700 codes, and for your truck being stuck in lymph node, shifting really hard, hesitating, you know, not a regular slippage of the gears, but a being stuck more in limp mode and shifting rough. Here's a 5th one. So it's number 5. There's number 6. And I'll lay that down. Okay, I have found on the driver's side, on the very top above on the transmission, there is a plug-in, and it pushes down. It has a cradle on it. You push that down. That plug-in right here needs to release before up here. You push the white retainer down, which I've done, and then you pull out on that maroon or red tab, pull it toward you and pull up, and it unplugs from the valve body. And then if all the screws are out, it should be ready to come down now. Yeah, and it drops down just like that. And this is it. Okay, this is your valve bodies, and then this is your shift solenoids, and I am using the white end connector, which is the newer revision. And what you want to do right here, this gear plate, you want to make sure that they're in the same position as the old one. See where that pin is right there, how it's back. Okay, ready? Yep. So when you go to put the new solenoid and valve body on, you want to make sure the solenoid is in the right gear position with the shifter. So when I first took this off, it's right here, and say if your new plate is up here, you want to put it in the same gear and in the same position that your new solenoid is in. That way the gears are going to match up. If not, then you could have shifting problems. I'm going to go ahead and take it off. I can take it off by hand. If you can't, there is a special wrench that they make for these, and you will be getting some transmission fluid on you from it too, as you can see. Just spinning that out of there. It'll come right on down. Now what we're going to need is to get this little ring out of here, because the filter comes with the new one. And I'm gonna get that out with needle nose pliers. See if I can get the light over there. You guys can see what I'm talking about better. Right here, this will come out, and you'll put the new one in it in case the old gasket is brittle or worn out. The new one will go in there. As you can see, this is aluminum, and I can bend it a little bit to get it come off there. And this is exactly what you want to get to come off, because the new one, the new filter you're replacing, will fit up in here. New ring, as you can see, it's just going to fit right up in there. What I'm going to try to do is use the other end of a screwdriver and tap it up in there. And I'm going to make sure it's up in there good. See, this is what I'm using. And it's kind of got a rubbery texture to it, so it's not going to bend it. It's good to push it and lock it up in there and make sure it's in there good, and it is. I'll give it 2 more for good measure. The next part you want to do is you want to put this filter on, and as you can see, it has a plastic union piece. This is what I'm going to call it. And the smaller threads, see, this one has like 10 threads, this one has 4. The one that has the smaller threads screw into this. What I'm going to do before I put it on the transmission is I'm going to fill it up about 3/4 of the way full, and then I'm going to lubricate the rubber. I'll lubricate the rubber around the filter. And that way there won't be no problems when it's shifting, because it can present, not all the time, about 1 in 10. You'll have to let it flow all the way through, and this lets it flow faster, quicker, and better. So it's time to put this filter on. So then it's time to screw on the filter, which is right here, and you'll screw it on hand tight. You do not have to tighten it with a wrench of any type. What I'm going to do next, I want to clean the outer surface where the transmission pan is going to go, because I want to get that flush and as clean as possible so that there's no leaks when I get it back together. The crud off of where the transmission pan is going to go back on, because you want as smooth as a surface as you can get, because you don't want it to leak. Because, needless to say, the transmission fluid is expensive, and you don't want to have to fix it twice. You just want to do it right the first time. Here you want to make sure that the plug is lining up with this, and that it's all going to line up. And I'm just taking these and I'm just getting them started by hand. That way there's still room for this to line up and also to get into the bolt holes. Looks like they... I'm gonna need the 8mm with the ratchet. If you're putting these on, you'll want to get them to torque specs, which I will include the torque specs. I will include the torque specs in the video description box. Okay, after you got them all tightened to torque specs, you're going to want to put this end first into your new gasket up there. And then you'll take your Torx screw that came off, and then you want to put the Torx screw in and get that filter on there, and then it'll look just like that. I'm going to be ready for the transmission pan. These are the two different transmission pans, and since I'm doing this job, I went ahead and I bought a third-party transmission pan. This is the original, the factory one, and this is the one that has the magnet, which what the magnet does, if your gears are wearing down, the teeth of the gears in your transmission, you will have metal shavings on this. There's no metal shavings. So I'm going to transfer it to this pan. And also another difference in this pan is that it has a bolt that I can change out the transmission fluid when and if I ever need to, as the one from the factory does not have one, as you can see when I took it apart. And here's what they look like on the back and the front. Some people don't use gasket sealer. I am going to use some in the crevices on this third-party pan. This is where you'd put the gasket sealer, and I'm going to put it on there, make sure it's even, that it's level with the indentions on this pan, and then I'm going to use a putty knife to smooth it out. And then you line this up with the holes on here on the pan. With the gasket on the new transmission pan, the transmission pan is going to be installed. And this is what the new transmission pan is looking like once you get it on there. It has the bolt to drain the transmission fluid in the future. I'm just cleaning it up now, making sure the seals are tight, and then I'm gonna start adding the fluid. And I'm gonna make sure it's not leaking before I put the crossmember back on the body of the truck. Then I'm gonna pour some more fluid in. And then it's going to go down and into the pan. This is my special funnel that I have, and I'll give you the link to purchase your very own. If I have a problem, you guys might have a problem. So, one of the things I did, I had already gotten this back together and everything worked fine, but there was no reverse. I got to racking my brain and I thought, what did I do wrong? Well, like I said, I'm not certified or anything, but I do have common sense, at least sometimes. I got to looking over the diagram of the old one, comparing it to the new one, and I could see on the video what I did wrong. And it's this rubber gasket that goes to the rear reverse. My new one, which was a remanufacture, did not come with this gasket. So I'm going to have to transplant it over to the new one. So if you do not have these gaskets for the forward gears, these gaskets worked fine and all the forward gears worked great. However, without this gasket, there's not enough pressure for it to go into reverse. So just remember that. Also, you'll want to get the right transmission fluid, which I did. It's the ATF +4. And I found out that instead of 6 quarts, that once you take out the valve body, there's going to be liquid built up in it. And after everything was said and done, I had to put in about 9 quarts, maybe a tad over. But you just keep checking that transmission dipstick and to make sure that you top it up good, and you'll want to idle the truck in neutral. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and transplant this gasket to this valve body. Brings us to an important part, and that is putting the cross member back up underneath the truck. And this is the only part that's easier when it's laying on the ground instead of hydraulics. Now, what I've already done, I've hooked this drill bit, which has a sander on it, and I've went around and I scraped all of the rust off of where this cross member is going to go back up under there and connect. And I went all the way around and got all the way around here, and I cleaned it up pretty good, as you can see. And then I went up underneath the truck where the cross member connects, and I also cleaned the rust off. So that should leave you with 4 bolts and 4 nuts. And that's what we're going to be putting the cross member back together with. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lay the cross member underneath. What's going to happen is this jack is going to push up on this cross member, and you're going to use the weight of the truck against it, and it should push it right up. See how that's pushing it up right into place. Once you use those tools, you use the jack to push this up, and you use the pry bar and hole punch to line these up as you need. You push those big bolts all the way through and then hand tighten them. So you can see them right here. There's 2 on each side of the truck. On the passenger side, and I've got where I'm going to line these holes up to the cross member to the body. And the jack is just going to push it up. And I'm going to line these up. You might have to use the pry bar just a little bit. And the bolt, you see, will go all the way through, and you'll want to start it with your hands. Okay, that one started by hand. This one started by hand. Now what I want to do now is take these 4 bolts, put them onto my drill. Before I tighten these 4 bolts down, 2 on each side, I'm going to put the 4 underneath the cross member on with a 15mm socket, and I'm going to tighten them up. Just going to start over here with this one. Get them good and tight with your drill. And then do number 4. Now I'm going to switch out and do the 18mm. Now I'm going to need to put a wrench on the other side of this cross member so that the other side does not move as this goes on. Let me get that 18mm wrench. This is going to hold the other side in the same place while I drill this side on. I'm going to do the same with the first one. And these two are tight now, and I will put the torque specs to these in the video description. So now I just have to tighten that side. Okay, that one's on good. And then, now that we have the cross member completely on, tightened down, we have the 2 18mm on the driver's side, the 2 18mm on the passenger side, and the 4 15mm underneath that holds the transmission and supports it in place. That's all done together. I've looked and see if there's any leaks. on the new transmission pan. Also, the new transmission pan has a drain bolt, as the factory one did not. We should be ready to let this truck down and see if the operation works. Now, this is the part where we're going to see if all of that time and labor was worth it. We're going to see if all the gears work. I just got done putting the transmission fluid in. It took 9 quarts. And I'm going to take this for a drive. No engine lights. So far, this bad whammer jammer is working. Got it up to 60 miles an hour, and we just shifted through all the gears. So the operation was a success. So the next garage time with Goody, you guys take care of yourselves and each other.